It's the Score North Twin Show.
It's a Trevor Plouffe Tuesday edition. We're freaking out a little bit here. The Twins did gain ground yesterday, though, because the Guardians were swept. But it feels like our pets' heads are falling off a little bit here, Coach Trev. I don't know if you want to pile on our angst or if you want to calm us down. It's a choose-your-own-adventure here.
I think I've kind of been on that side where, things obviously aren't looking great because of injuries. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's not like you can sugarcoat that. You're still missing Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. There hasn't really been a timetable unless you guys have heard something different. I mean, Dex, you're in the clubhouse more than I am.
No, nothing new on that front. Yeah.
I think those are the biggest pieces. The starting pitching is still interesting to me, although, Zebby's looked decent and Festa, you can say, well, I think the starting pitching might be the least of our worries right now, which is kind of crazy to say.
The Zebmeister, man, he's just 5-inning machine. He's been good. You pencil him in for the next month or so.
But the bullpen?
So that was where my worry was initially, because you're relying on three rookies, and, they've performed admirably. But I think if you break it down into offense, starting pitching, and bullpen, I think there's cause for concern almost everywhere you look. Although I say that about the offense, and they've scored, I believe, the third most runs in August. So they're still doing it enough there. And if you could just put those guys back in the lineup, I'm talking about Buck and Correa, I think that could be fixed very quickly. Back in the bullpen, all of a sudden is kind of like an interesting thing for the Twins. So there's reason to be alarmed. I don't think there's any doubt about it. You have to be a realist about it.
So what do you think about, because to me, this started a week ago Sunday in Texas, right? Alcala melts down, 4-rip lead is gone. You actually come back to your credit to tie it, and then Texas wins it. But, okay, that happens. And you had won 3 of 4. And ultimately, yeah, it was too bad, but it's baseball. But here's where I see a trend I don't like. That loss, and then you get to the Tuesday loss that you were also in the booth for, to the Padres. Okert comes in, blows up. They say we can't put Jax back out, but Jax had thrown 10 pitches and he's lights out. So that loss bothers me. And then you get to the Sunday game, the Cardinals game, 2-1, and Julian's still at second base and throws the ball to you in California or somewhere. I don't know where that ball was going. But my point is, those 3 games to me are very much like playoff games. Like, your decisions are important. Your approach, in this case, Julian. I mean, Duran did nothing wrong. He didn't blow that game. He got screwed by his second baseman. When you watch those games and to put them into a vacuum, what do you come away with? Because the Texas game alone, okay, I'm fine with it. But when you put it into the hat trick of games, it bothers me as far as what's going to happen in the playoffs potentially if you make it.
I think it's not far out to say there needs to be almost more of a sense of urgency placed on all these games. I know it's August 27th now, but it's crunch time, especially, you're vying maybe to host, the wild card, or maybe you're trying to win the division still, which is obviously still very much in play. I that's my takeaway, is like the sense of urgency in those games wasn't great. I do believe they probably should have replaced Julian, maybe move Farmer over there, bring Willie in, whatever you need to do. That's that game. The Okert decision, I mean, you guys know how I felt about that one. I wish the best for that guy, but he just hadn't been throwing the ball well at all. I think in that game, there was a couple different ways Rocco could have went. He could have left Bailey Ober in that game, which is probably my number one thing. You gave up a homer to Manny freaking Machado. Your pitch count was still low. It's okay. Like, you were dominating that game. I would have went there. But I agree with you. Jax could have went again, or just honestly, pretty much anybody else in that situation would have been a better option. So, yeah, I think that's my takeaway. Like, I think it's time. I even mentioned that to Rocco, and we had a bunch of discussions because for some reason, people, and you're one of them, Judd, were talking about how I blew Rocco up, and I felt like I didn't do that. And so I actually had a discussion with him.
Oh, you guys were
talking
great.
about like, hey man, like if this came back to you and you felt that way, I apologize. I'm trying to be critical here in the most respectful way possible.
I'll explain that quickly here, okay? Your colleagues and the previous play-by-play guy would have never gone there and questioned it. And you and Corey did, which I thought was fantastic. Blowing him up is, I think in this town, it's seen like that. In Boston, it would be you basically patted him on the back and said, try again. But yeah, I have bitched and moaned about Bally's coverage on certain sports, including the Twins, for a long time. And the fact that coming up next, let's talk about the fourth reliever who just took a kid out for dinner. Anyway, I was thrilled that you guys were doing what we were on the couch, which was, hey, there were better options here. So that's why I actually wrote that.
So it's crazy to me because I appreciate all, like, it was very supportive of me on social media. I just wasn't expecting that reaction. So, I went and talked to Rocco, and what he told me was, hey, like, that's your job. Like,
yeah,
do it. And then, I get a call from, I guess I probably shouldn't start naming names. I got a call from someone that I consider like the one guy that like I really listened to with this whole broadcasting thing with the Twins. And he was like, that was perfect. Like, that's what you should be doing. So like, I went back and listened to it. I kind of am on your side. I don't feel like it was crazy, but I will say this. I don't think that, I think that one was on Rocco, and I think he'd admit that. How about that? Which is fine. Like, look, that's part of the gig, dude. Like, you got to be able to take some criticism from time to time. Now, like, am I going to actively root against any of the players on the Twins no? Like, I think it's okay to be a homer. Like, it's a regional broadcast, dude. Like, you're talking to a bunch of Twins fans. If you're doing a national game, obviously you need to be a little bit unbiased, but I think like I should be rooting for the team. And then I should be saying, like, what's going on here when things don't seem right. So I don't know, but those decisions in the sense of urgency, I think has to change. And it's getting time now, man, where you got to start treating it like playoff baseball. I truly, truly believe that.
Does it concern you though at all, Trev, with just some of the decisions that you just went through the whole list that have happened with that Rocco's made, from pulling Ober to going to Okert? We on this show had a spirited debate yesterday on pulling Matt Wallner for Kyle Farmer.
I told you he can hit lefties. I knew the whole time. I don't know. You guys were smoking yesterday.
Well, we can get into it if you want. If you want hear what happened, Trev. But does anything that Rocco has done in the last week, like, do you see those same scenarios playing out in a playoff game? And like, does it make you question anything a little bit more, or was this just a bad week of Twins baseball, which also could be part of this chapter too?
I think sometimes you have to give credit to the other team as well. The Oker decision still haunts me because he saw lefties coming up, but like, for a guy that pinch hits more than anybody in baseball, like, you have to understand, like, those lefties are going to turn into righties right away. And so like, I do think those decisions are going to change. There were some quotes and I wasn't in there after the game, but he was talking about these guys got to pitch at some point. That's not the time to pitch them, in my opinion. So I don't think that'll happen anymore. But they're kind of thin in the back end of the bullpen. I think right now, if you really had to go pecking order, has Sands jumped Alcala? Like,
Sands has like a 1.05 ERA in the last 2 months.
I wouldn't give up on Jorge. Like, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think you need to get him back in those situations, because I think he's proven that he can do it. Guys are going to have week-long skids. That's a normal thing. If it continues, then you need to figure something out. But I still think he deserves a shot back there. But basically, I think the guys that you can kind of rely on right now are Sands, Jackson, Duran. And Alcala's in that group as well. I think they're going to have to start pitching more. Like, I think they're going to have to. We see what Cleveland's doing with their bullpen. I mean, Clase's pitched 4 nights in a row. Like, that's a recipe that you have to subscribe to. Like, if you're trying to win baseball games in September and in the playoff race, and look, guys that we thought were going to be here aren't here. Brock Stewart's not coming back. Justin Topa, like, these guys that we thought were going to be the additions. There wasn't much of a trade line acquisition as we know. So those guys are supposed to come back. They're not. So you're going to have to rely on these other guys. That's just the bottom line. They're going to have to pitch more.
Well, just real quick, what is a clubhouse like when you got your 26 guys now and 25, a few years ago, when there's like one or two relievers that are just getting shelled night after night, and they've blown a game or two. Is it weird in the clubhouse? Are they like isolated? What's it like?
I think it's just different for each guy, how they blow them. If it's like walks, you're just like, dude, this guy can't pitch right now. If it's, what happened with Duran, you don't really think about it. If it's, Okert had been like good against lefties somewhat, like if he throws the right pitches, like he could do that. But that was, I feel like that was just not a good situation for him. So like almost you don't even think about Okert in that situation. You think about, the decision making. So it just differs, how they give up the runs, I think means a lot. And there's some guys that have, equity built up that you say, oh yeah, this guy's been great all season long and he blew a few. I think that's where the Alcala lies. Like, hey, this guy's proven that he can do it, had a rough patch, but every single person can look in the mirror and say, I've had a rough patch this year. So, it just differs.
So what's weird, it's sort of fun, but it's odd, Trevor, is this. Like the Twins technically should probably be out of a wild card spot right now. But if you look at the entire league down where they currently reside, I don't know that I've ever seen this amount of teams leaking oil. Like Boston has.
The Mariners are like right behind the Twins 5 games, and they just fired Scott Service.
Boston's lost like 19 or 20 games since the All-Star break. Like Boston was coming, and Boston is playing terrible. Cleveland just, as we talked about, got swept by KC, and that bottom portion of the wild card especially. So like what do you make of this entire thing? Because it seems like teams right now should be hitting the gas pedal and thriving. And instead, we got a lot of teams that feel like they might try and just back in.
I think that's the problem. I think with the added playoff spots, teams feel like, oh, we can just back in. And that's not really what the added playoff spots were meant to do. Number one, they were brought in to make the league more money. That's the number one reason.
Yeah.
Number two, they want fan bases engaged, come September, because, without these without the third wild card, where a bunch of these teams are just out. Nobody wants to really focus on baseball. Hey, football's here, right? Like, so you're trying to get people still engaged. But now the front office is like, hey, if we win 87 games, 86 games, like we got a dang good shot to get into the playoffs. So what's the sense of urgency there to go improve ourselves at the deadline, which is basically what we're seeing here. I mean, Seattle, who struggled offensively all year, they went out and got Randy Arozarena. I guess credit to them for making some sort of a move, but that's not enough. He's not enough to carry an entire offense, and they've been horrible. Boston kind of has become what we thought they would become at the beginning of the season. Their starting pitching surprised everybody, and that was the story of the first 3 months of the season for Boston was, oh my gosh, these pitchers, like Andrew Bailey came over there and they threw a bunch of off speed and they changed everything that they were doing. And that's great. But now the pitchers have come back down to earth, and now it's the offense, which, I love watching them, hit the ball and play and kind of play the game that they play there. But these teams just didn't really address needs. And I don't know, like part of me thinks there wasn't a lot available too, really, at the trade deadline, which, I think is a cop out for some organizations. But if you look around the league, like I guess who were there's only a few guys to go around for a bunch of teams still in contention. So I think a lot of the deficiencies that we saw on these teams just didn't really get addressed. Yeah,
there was only like maybe 4 or 5 clearly obvious sellers that were fire sailing. And then you start to look at, you got 4 garage sales happening. Let's check out the White Sox garage sale, and there's like 3 lava lamps and
the garage is on fire.
Like,
but
yeah,
we kept saying like, be the team that acts first.
Right.
Like whether that's a seller or whether that's a buyer, like go act first. You'll be better off for it. Like the team that I was in the booth for, and I saw them all week because I went down there with my youth team as well. The Padres, man. That's about as an oppressive team as you can have right now in the big leagues. That bullpen's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And they went out and against the Twins, you saw in the 7th and 8th inning, 2 of the guys they brought in, Jason Adams, nasty. Tanner Scott, nasty. Those guys weren't with the team. They went out and got them.
The Padres, because it's interesting, the Padres in terms of like market size and revenue, they're not that dissimilar from the Twins. They're not a Yankees, they don't have like $250 million payrolls, but they view prospects as trade chips. And it feels like we did an episode 3 weeks ago, 7 trade deadlines under the Falvey regime. And they've only really been hyper aggressive once in the 7 years, and it backfired in 2022 because that was the Tyler Mahle year. I mean, the Twins view prospects as these guys could come up and give us 6 years of team control more than trade chips. The Padres are like, whatever needs to happen right now in this moment to make our team better, and if it means trading 3 of our top 5 prospects, who cares? And it's, not that it's worked out for them on a World Series level, but they're highly interesting and competitive, it feels like, using a completely different aggressive strategy and player movement.
I mean, I am not a prospect list guy. I'm not a prospect hugger whatsoever. I mean,
prospect hugger.
Encarnacio Strand has like a OPS in the 5s right now for the Reds. Spencer Steer has been a slightly above average player. Like, dude, it's not like they gave up the world. They went out you can't look at it like that. Mm-hmm. You just can't.
No, I think the Twins would come back and say, okay, cool. Your little rant about the Padres. The last time the Padres won 90 games in the season was 2010. So
yeah, no, I get that, but they're trying at least.
Right.
They're going and doing it. And guess what? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that freaking place is packed. And fans realize when you're going for it and putting a product out for them and they show up. I don't think the attendance has been that great at Target Field this year, to my knowledge.
It has been good.
So, I don't know. There was an article, John Middleton, the guy that owns the Phillies. So, he's one of the owners of the Phillies, but he's like the acting owner. He's the face. He came out and just said it's not a regular business. And I've always said that. It's not. Owning a sports team isn't like a regular business. I think there are times where, you can't treat it like a corporation where it's just like, hey, it's maximize profit, because it's not like that. You have to treat every once in a while, you got to give a little. Which means maybe it takes a little bit off your plate, whatever it may be. I don't know.
You're right.
And I'm not saying the Twins haven't done that. I'm not trying to fire at the poll ads. They've been great to me. But I think as far as talking about prospects, that's one way where you don't really got to spend money to go get guys. You drafted them, get rid of some of these guys because the big leagues is the only thing that matters. Does anybody know who won the International League last year? Or the Florida State League. No one cares.
It was a great
dude.
race.
The Toledo Mud Hens?
It was a great. Oh man, the Florida State League was unbelievable.
Who cares, man? Your job as a general manager, president of baseball ops, is to make the big league team better.
I'm going to look this up, by the way. International League.
To piggyback off of what you just said too. Here's where I think mistakes were made. Okay. You clearly had issues with your TV contract going down. And so right or wrong announced in November or December that your payroll was going to be cut. And indeed it was by quite a bit on opening day. But to get back to what you're saying is, don't you have to say at some point as the deadline approaches, you know what, we're playing really well. This team, I feel like, just for a second, forget the fans. I feel like the clubhouse deserved help. And you serve him up Trevor Richards? I mean, I don't mean to bag on Trevor, but the guy has 7 wild pitches. He's a disaster. And I'm sorry, if I'm a starting player for the 2024 Twins, I'm looking across and being like, that's what you gave me? So just from a player standpoint, I think if you're going to make the decision that, hey, we are a business, we're not going to hemorrhage money, but now's the time to act. The trade deadline, to your point, was the time to jump the line and at least get one of the guys the Padres did. You don't need to go get them both, So, Trevor, I think that's where you're right.
Yeah, I don't if you set a business standard and you say, hey, look, we got like stuff's going down. We don't know the future of our TV revenue. I'm okay with that. It is your business. It is your business. You can make those decisions and you set that standard at the beginning of the season. And whether or not Twins fans liked it, that's fine. This is what you set. But at the trade deadline, yes, I felt like there probably could have been a little bit more aggressive with some of the prospects because, I think I said this on the broadcast, new rankings come out all the time. So you get rid of your third best prospect and your fourth best prospect. Guess what? You're going to have another one. And then, maybe pay whoever it is, Keith Law, like on the side to just rank your farm system higher. Like what? If you're the second ranked farm system in the league, which I believe the Twins are now, it's the highest they've been in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is just what that is. It's currency.
Yeah.
Where are you going to play all these guys?
You
don't have enough spots as it is on your team right now.
Yeah, the 2022 trade deadline, which people say, it blew up. We traded for Tyler Maller. We gave up all this stuff. 2 years later, you've won a playoff series, and you have this third best prospect rankings in baseball. So really, what did that deadline really do to your franchise? Nothing. It did absolutely nothing.
For 2 weeks when the Reds were really good last year, they were like, oh my gosh, look at these guys. And look, Spencer Spear has been great. I actually think that guy is a hell of a player. But, I mean, was there room for him right now? I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like he would move the needle too much on this current roster right now.
Yeah. No, it's, by the way, on your sort of your attendance and business point, and I don't have the full financials on the Padres the last 5 years, but they decided in like 2019-20, right around the pandemic, they decided, F it. Let's go for it. They went from having, so in 2017, they had a $50 million payroll, which is kind of where it was. They spiked up a couple years, but it was like a $50 million payroll in 2017. And then they doubled it almost to 93 and 90 million in 18-19. Then they jumped again to 141, 154, 192, 236. They scaled it back by $80 million this year because they just like went way too far. Now they've only been to the playoffs twice, and they went to the NLCS and got beaten 5 games in 2022. But here's the most interesting thing. During this stretch where they've decided F it, and then F it again, let's go up to a second tier. Their attendance in the National League was 10th, 11th, 10th, 12th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and 2nd. So their average attendance has gone from 26,000 when they were spending like $50 million to 40,000 per game. They've added 15,000 more people per game by being interesting. Not even by being a World Series contender, by just being interesting and telling the fans, hey, we're here, man. Like we're going to splash. We're going to go for it. We're not the Yankees, but we're going to go for it. It's interesting.
It is interesting, and it helps that they're like the only show in town. Like that's
certainly.
But I almost think that works. If you're talking about the Twins, like, look, the NFL is the NFL. Like, people just love football in this freaking country. It's crazy the power that the NFL has. Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce just signed a $100 million deal for their freaking podcast. Like, I don't understand.
You're in the wrong
how
sport,
Amazon is going to make money off that. I don't understand, dude.
Wrong
How many
sport,
people listen to that show?
Yeah, but they're not playing warehouse games on Valley Sports North.
That's insane. Yeah, I'm underpaid, I guess. Very underpaid, apparently. That's so I think that makes the point, though. The Twins right now, if you had to rank them as far as popularity among the 4 major sports in Minnesota, what do they rank?
I think Vikings easily won like almost any year the last 50 years. Right now, Timberwolves with a bullet are number 2.
Oh, yeah.
And then I agree with Dex. I think the Wild are just kind of in this weird transition period where they're still paying contracts for
state of hockey, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. State of hockey.
That's what I'm saying. So like
They're
you
third.
don't want to be the 4th in your own town. Like, and so the way to do that is you got to be good. I think that's the main thing. People want to come and see a good team. Target Field is beautiful, but people have been to Target Field now. The novelty of it is worn off a little bit. So now it's about putting a winning team on the field and getting people excited about the product. And I think that's where they kind of messed up. If at the beginning of the season saying we're cutting payroll, It just took the life out of or the steam out of winning your first playoff series in however long. That's, to me, that was a little bit of a mistake. And maybe it was like, and look, I don't know the financials. None of us do, because you can't see the books. Maybe they had to do it. And again, it's your business and you can do that. But when you still perform with the cut payroll and you have the trade deadline, like
right.
they should have, and they had to do that, and they didn't do it.
And your team deserves that too. So there's, to go back to the Padres, there's one other interesting factor that's happened within the last 2 years there as well. If you guys recall, they were one of the first to bail off Bally's. The Padres have their own broadcast agreement, which means, by the way, as far as I know, the rights fees were cut massively. Like, this is the Twins' problem. They still get a rights fee. It's cut back. But the Padres bailed off, went into business with baseball to do the broadcasts. Now, the key to that is they have streaming. And I don't think that we should undersell what that means. Like the fact that the average person, unless they subscribe to Comcast, can't stream the Twins games directly, I think is a huge problem. And I think that the Padres, while they have taken less, probably have benefited more PR-wise, because their games are available via streaming to everyone in the area there.
So think about, like, just again from almost from like a PR standpoint, Padres have told their fan base over the last 5 or 6 years, even though you could look at the records and the Twins have been more competitive and have gone to the playoffs more often and probably have a better team largely over the past like 6 years than the Padres have. But the Padres have said, we are going to be aggressive, trading for major league players, spending on major league players, and cutting the tie with a bad TV deal for the fans to give access to the fans. Like, they're telling fans, we love you, we're here for you. And the perception is sort of the opposite the last 2 years, with cutting of the payroll and not making aggressive deadline deals. So for those reasons and maybe others, Padres fans have reciprocated it back to the organization by going to the ballpark and being all in on their team more than Twins fans have.
Yeah,
I think that's a fact.
I second time I've said this word today, but there's equity building up for the Padres. If they go through a bad season, like, people have gone to the parks, they understand how fun it is to go to a baseball game, so they'll go again. Like, I think it's all a circle there. And you have to mention that ballpark is amazing. It's got a huge footprint. Like, they have that Gallagher Square out there. I talked about it on my social media a little bit. People show up there hours before the game. The kids are running around. It's so cool. Target Field doesn't have that big of a footprint to be able to do what they did in San Diego. And I love Target Field. I think it's a great place to watch a baseball game. I don't know. I think, San Diego's just kind of done it right, in my opinion.
By the way, the Norfolk Tide, the champions of the 2023
That makes a lot of
International
sense.
League.
Mets?
We probably could have guessed that if we really thought about it.
It's a Mets affiliate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat the Durham
Norfolk
Bulls.
Tide is the
Orioles.
Orioles.
Oh,
Yeah,
is it?
Orioles.
Oh, they switched.
Yeah.
Well, they used to be Mets. That's all I know.
Yeah, so the Orioles now, with all like the zillion million prospects that they have, that makes sense.
Hey, Trev. So I heard you with Rose yesterday talk about a guy. I think it was Tony from Minneapolis, St. Paul, who's doing like a ballpark tour, and caught the Ohtani 40-40 and dropped it. What's the story there?
Tony is a Minnesota guy, big Twins fan. He was always at the games, became somewhat of I think he's got a YouTube channel doing that, but he goes to different parks, and I'm not going to call him a ball hawk, but he likes to go and try to catch balls. Like, he positions himself there.
Oh,
and
he's one of those.
Great guy. I've gotten to, know him, and saw him in San Diego. Yes. Told me he's going to LA, and he was there. You can see the video. Just watch the Ohtani home run. He's there with this turquoise glove, and it's the 40-40 homers, or 40-40 for Ohtani, 40th homer, grand slam, walk off.
Oh,
off the heel of the glove. He was in position. There was a little bit of pushing from the guy next to him, but they were in the stands. They were kind of on the steps in front of the stand. So like, it was basically just him and another guy, and he missed it, man. And the ball ends up going back on the field. Jose Siri picks up, throws it back into the stands. Somebody got it. But I don't know what that ball's worth. It's a lot probably. And then, worst case scenario, you meet Shohei, you get a bat or a jersey signed by him. And I think it's still cool that he's like in that video. That's like a awesome video to be a part of, but missed it, man.
That hurts.
Come on,
man.
Twins fans.
You know what that guy could use, Tony? A cold beverage from Padres, Judd. That's what that guy could use.
That is so true.
Drown his sorrows.
Yep. And look, we're talking about a local craft brewery that's recreating Irish and UK classics, as well as some craft beers as well. And we have all tried them, at least Declan and Phil have, and they are absolutely delicious. Trevor would like them too, especially the red, because the red beer is hard to find now. They used to be plentiful. Well, now they're not. But guess what? Padres has recreated a red beer that is absolutely delicious. And now you're saying, okay, Sports Dad, where can I get this beer? And I'm going to tell you, in over 80 liquor stores in the metro. That's right. I go to Lund's Byerly's to get mine. It's absolutely a delicious beer. In fact, I might be sipping on one tonight as I watch the Twins and Bravos play. Check them out. Padres, again, available in over 80 liquor stores in the Twin Cities.
Speaking of watching the Twins, in time for postseason stretch run or football season, we are giving away a 75-inch Roku Pro Series 4K TV that automatically adjusts color and sharpness for your shows, movies, your sporting events. Nearly an $1,800 value. We're giving it away at the end of the month through the Score North app. There's a listener rewards section. You can check that out. 75-inch Roku Pro Series 4K TV. Hey, one more thing for you here. A dumb baseball question from Eric Barsness, Trevor. He says, hopefully stupid baseball questions are still a thing on the show. Sure, you can throw them at us. What makes a starting pitcher versus a bullpen pitcher? A lot of relievers throw heat, so what is it that makes them relievers versus starters usually?
Okay. Well, I think the main difference between a starter and a reliever would probably be the ability to throw more than 2 pitches effectively for strikes. I think to be a starter, you at least have to have 3 pitches that you can command. And as a reliever, you could go 1. Most of the guys have 2. I think that's the biggest thing. And they're more pitchers, I would say. Starters are more pitchers, reading hitters, being able to adjust second time through the order, third time through.
The Greg Maddux clips, by the way.
They're so awesome, dude.
Oh, my God.
So
The doc was
awesome.
It was
I've got to hang with him a little bit. I do this charity golf tournament that he's a part of every year in Las Vegas. And I try to talk to him, and he just wants nothing to do with me. I'm going to break him down, though, one day.
He's like, are you Tony Gwynn, Barry Bonds, or some other?
Yeah, he has no respect for me whatsoever, and I get it. I totally get it, dude.
Jeff Bagwell. I'm gonna serve up a cookie so that he flails
God,
on a
was he
pitch
fun to watch,
in
though.
October.
Oh my God, was he
I
fun
think
to
that's
watch.
the difference. I think, starting pitchers are more pitcher-like, and they have the ability to adjust and add and subtract. And the guys in the bullpen, specifically now, like modern baseball, they just throw the shit out of the ball, and they try to miss bats. And I think everyone's trying to miss bats, but I think it's more paramount in with a reliever. And again, I just think that they're, I don't want to call them one-trick ponies. They're like a 2-trick pony, and whereas starters have to be able to, do a little bit more. And I think everyone wants to be a starter, but it's very difficult to command and be effective with that many pitches.
Yeah. Coach Trev, great session here today. John Boy Media, Bally Sports, awesome job across all those platforms. And we'll do it again next Tuesday, Trevor Plouffe Tuesday, man.
Awesome stuff.
Thank you,
man.
sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your service on this show. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button on the Score North Twin Show YouTube channel. Please do so. You can also give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple and Spotify to help spread the word. All right, Twins, let's pick it up. Come on, Twins. Here we go.
Do something.